and serve responsibly while you're waiting in God's waiting room. That's what he does. For 4 months he prays passionately and then he serves responsibly. He goes in and out before the king. Now listen, in that culture, you don't go before the king with a sour look on your face. You talk about sudden death. It was sure death. It was literally suicide to go into the presence of the king with a sour look on your face. The impression was that you ain't glad to be in his presence. And so no matter how you felt when you went in before the king, you put a good look on your face. You dressed in your best because you were in the presence of the king. Kind of like when we come before the Lord. That's another story. I won't chase that rabbit. But you didn't go before the king with a sour look. And so when he went before the king with a sour look on his face, thankfully so, God was working in Nehemiah, but God was working on the king. So the king doesn't respond in normal fashion. He says, now you got a look on your face and you ain't sick. It must be sadness of heart. And all of a sudden, Nehemiah senses God's move on his behalf. You ought to spend some time in God's waiting room. Spend some time because you don't know what God is doing behind the scenes. You don't know what God is doing with the circumstances. Listen, your present circumstances are a part of God's vision for your life. God has you right where he wants you to be, even if you took an indirect route. You know, there were some things God said yes and you said no. Y'all come on, talk to me. I had a stroke. I'm not going to work this out. There were some things in your life, some decisions in your life that God put a big blaring no. And you said, but I can do something with it. And you were just going to make God's no be maybe. I don't want to help you. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to find out. Anybody in the room ever knew God told you to do something and you did the exact opposite?
Yes, sir.
God was sure.
Yes, sir.
God told you, you know where God was leading you. You know where God was directing. I'm not talking about the times when you wasn't sure. I'm going to give you a pass on that. I'm talking about the times when you knew. And God had to take you out of your mess. And here it is. In all thy ways. When you finally stopped right where you were, in all of thy ways, acknowledge him. And from right there, he began to get you back on track. He was taking you from here to Houston. You could have went up 45, but you decided to go Highway 6 or Highway 3, or some of us were so crazy we went over the ferry. Stay trying to get to Houston. Spend some time in God's waiting room. God has us on the schedule because here it is. I know the plans I have for your life. Come on, touch your neighbor and tell him, God knows what he's doing. Come on, y'all, help me preach. God knows what he's doing.
Okay, Reverend.
And so we have to spend time in his waiting room, and waiting time spent on God is not wasted time. Sometimes we feel like if you're praying, you ought to do something, but no, sometimes if you're praying, you ought to pray. And you ought to wait. And you ought to pray some more. And you may have to wait some more. And some stuff God just has to weed it out. He'll work it out for you. Can I take a second thing since y'all want to help me this morning? Not only ought we to spend some time in God's waiting room, but secondly, let your fears feed your faith. Look at the text, it's right there in front of you. If you can close your Bible, verse 2. And the king said, why is your face so sad? Seeing you're not sick, there is nothing but sadness of heart. Then I was very much afraid. Why? Because his life was in danger. And he had to depend on the king's mercy. And here it is. You know God is moving when somebody speaks before you. He never says a word to the king until the king says something to him. Now, the object was to get to Judah, to get to Jerusalem. The object is to build the walls, to rebuild the gates. That's what he's got in his heart to do. But he has to wait on God to open the door of opportunity.
Amen.
So here it is. There are any number of things done in preparation that leads to one opportunity. My question is, when it knocks, will you answer? I missed that. When opportunity knocks, are you prepared to answer? Some of us have wasted so much time and took the hard route, and bumped our heads up, and we got some marks to prove it. Bumped our heads up against some walls. Now, some of us didn't go to college as such, but a whole lot of us in here went to the University of Hard Knocks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, I ain't gonna leave that point. Somebody say something. A whole lot of us got our master's degree.
Yes, sir.
Matter of fact, some of us have our earned PhD.
Amen.
From the University of Hard Knocks.
Need some positive.
Anybody here been catching your hand? You're going through some storms, going through some stuff because you put the cart before the horse.
Yes, sir.
And when you trying to bring God,
I put it before it, Reverend.
We messed up a whole lot of this stuff. And here's what I want to tell you now. You can let your fear feed your faith. In other words, come on, high five somebody and tell them I ain't scared.
I ain't scared of you.
No, sir.
I might have some problems, but I ain't scared. I might have some issues, but I ain't scared. I might have more months than I have money, but I ain't scared. Because here it is, God has not given me the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I might not have to figure out what he's going to do, but he promised. He promised that he was not going to leave me nor forsake me. So what Nehemiah does is turns his fear upside down. Fear is false evidence, and you ought not let it get the best of you. He saw what he saw. He felt what he felt, but he understood that God was greater than anything he was facing. And so his trust was in God, and he fueled his faith by his fear. The same thing that Satan meant for evil, God made it for his good. He worried about what the king might do to him, but the king was getting ready to give him a blank check. Now don't tell me he won't make your enemies be your footstool. By the way, you do know he's in captivity, and he has absolutely no right to say anything or expect anything. But God has a way of turning stuff upside down. You remember when they came out of Egypt? They had been in Egyptian bondage for 400 years. And so when they got ready to go out, watch this. God allowed them to plunder their masters to pay them for the service rendered.
Yeah. I got it.
They got stuff from the boss on their way out of town. Y'all missed it. They were slaves They were being delivered from slavery, and so they plundered. Usually, an enemy has to be conquered before you can plunder them. Plunder means take their stuff. They took their stuff without even fighting, because God had whipped them into submission under all of those plagues. And when they got ready to march out, not a dog wagged his tail, because God was God was moving so in the midst. They had been waiting and crying so long that when God started riding, somebody backed up and said, "Ride on, King." No man can hinder you. God opened the door, and he didn't speak to the king until the king spoke to him, because it was God's doing. And he was following God's plan. I got to go. Let me tell you, what God originates, he orchestrates. All I'm trying to tell you is that when God is in the mix, when God is in the business of unfolding his plan, wherever he directs, he protects. So I guess I can get out of here. I want to tell you, if you pray diligently in private, you can look for God to do something in the open. He does it every time. Whispered silent prayer. But when God got ready to answer, he did it in the presence of his enemy. You see how the David says he sets a table in the presence. You know, sometimes I feel sorry for folk. They misunderstand how God operates. But you know, well, I'm just, y'all don't know, y'all. Come on now. Y'all ain't from the country, so y'all don't know how it works. But when the chicken want to hop the fence, she got to squat.
Yeah, got to go down.
But been to the country, I know you ain't from the country.
Everybody.
But you've been to the country, and you know the people squat, the higher hop. So I want to tell folks so bad that every time you knock me down, some stuff inside me. When I was a little boy, I had the little hard rubber ball. And when you would throw them down, they would hit, and the harder they hit down, the higher they went up. I got another one, and I'm a close. Weevils wobble, but they don't fall down. I need somebody that knows there's something on the inside. That when you knock it down, he's got some bounce back. So he was, Nehemiah had been praying for 4 months. He'd sent his telegraph to God. He'd sent his email to God. He'd sent his fax to God. And it seemed like his SOS cry was going unheard. Wow. But when God got ready to answer, when God got ready to move, he moved on the mind of a heathen king. He moved on the mind of one that didn't worship him, because God was getting ready to do something for Nehemiah that he couldn't do for himself. But my brothers and sisters, I'm glad to tell you that the God we serve is the same today that it was in Nehemiah's day. And if indeed you talk to him in private prayer, you can expect that God will make a way. So quit worrying about your supervisor. Quit worrying about folk trying to pull the rug from under your feet. Quit worrying about folk trying to set you up. Just know that what God originates, if it's in this plan, I guess I go on and tell you what's for me, it's for me. And if I can get you to help me close, I'll leave it right there. Go on and tell your neighbor if it's for you. Don't worry about nobody looking jealous over what you got. If it's for you, what God has for you, don't worry about it. Just go on and celebrate. Just go on and thank God for what he gave. Quit apologizing for God's blessing. If the Lord has been good to you, you don't owe nobody no kind of explanation. And if they want to know how you got where you are, tell them Jesus the best thing that ever happened to me. And if you look over my life, you will see that every time I turn around, he keeps right on making a way. Is there anybody in this room who don't mind testifying that every time I turn around, the Lord keeps right on making a way. He keeps on opening doors when men will turn their back on me. God keeps right on opening doors, and that's why I raise my hand. That's why I give him the praise. That's why I got to praise his holy name. When I think about where he brought me from, when I think about what he brought me through, when I look back over my life, I come to one conclusion. If it had not been for the Lord on my side, I think somebody is going to testify. If it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, I made it by his grace. I made it because the Lord is keeping me, and I will bless the Lord at all times. Oh, his praise shall continually be in my mouth. When I think about how good he's been to me, it moves from thinking to thanking. I can't help but thank the Lord. Anybody here don't mind thanking the Lord? Tell the Lord, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for bringing me. Thank you for keeping me. Thank you for holding me. And after a while, when the battle is over, after a while, when the journey is ended, when my feet start flying, I lay down my head in earth and shout, 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 hey, hey, oh, yes. I shout my trouble over, joy, 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 hey, hey, oh. Yes, sir. Hey, hey. We gonna get to the wall. We gonna get there. I'm watching a God works for Nehemiah. I guess I tell you, it is no secret what God can do. You gotta hate on me what you got for others. He do that for you. I can shout with you. When you buy your new car, I can shout with you. I ain't gonna have to hit you on the car, but I can shout with you. Praise the Lord. Go to the church over